let's move on to more advanced things that you can do with Lightroom catalogs. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to split one catalog into multiple catalogs. I'm going to go ahead and open up Lightroom. Now you might be wondering, why would I need that? Well, in many cases, many photographers end up having one master catalog where they have a bunch of images. And I've seen cases where people have as many as 500,000 photos in a single catalog. Now, whenever I see something like that, I say, well, that's just crazy, because imagine how much load that puts into the previews folder by itself. It's just going to be massive. With all these previews and thumbnails stored in there for 500,000 photos, not probably the best way to organize images. And maybe you are already starting out where you have a big mess, a bunch of years in one catalog, just like I have it here. So I've got a parent folder called Photos, and I've got 2012, 2014, 15, and 16. And what if you said, well, I've got so many images in there and Lightroom is getting really slow, it's bogging down, how can I optimize this better? And the nice and the good news is there is a way. And something you can do is you can actually take each of these years and separate it out from this one master catalog into a number of catalogs. Let me show you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select this 2012 year. And what I want to do is take everything that I have from this folder and separate it into a separate Lightroom catalog. I'm going to go ahead and go to File, and if I click on Export as Catalog, that's one of the options I've got there. I can select the destination, so I'm just going to go ahead and go to my D drive, and let's just create a very quickly a temporary folder structure. I'm just going to call it for now Lightroom New. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one catalog and split it into a number of catalogs. So let's go ahead and create that. And I'm going to name this one, say 2012. So when I did that, as you can see on the bottom, it says exporting a catalog with 124 photos. And the reason why it says that is actually I went to the parent folder, and as you can see, there are 124 photos in there. So if I wanted to, I could select all of these images, and then if I did that, I could say export selected photos only, but I don't actually have to do that. So in this case, I don't need to do that because otherwise it's just going to export one image. And then one thing that is important here to point out is that you have other options right here. It says export negative files, build includes smart previews, include available previews. And then one thing that it's important here to point out is that you probably do not want to export the negative files, because what it will do is when you create a folder or a new catalog, it will actually copy all of the raw images or any of the images that you have here, which is 124 images, into a folder here, which is going to duplicate your effort. So in this case, we do not want to do that. We do not want to copy anything aside from creating a brand new catalog. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that. And then include available previews is something that is simply going to take it from the previous folder that you already have and then copy that information over so that it doesn't have to recreate those previews again. That's a time saver, so I'm going to keep that on. So let's go ahead and click Save. The moment I do that, it's just exporting the catalog right now. And as you can see, it actually couldn't find previews for like 99 of the photos from 124 in that previous folder, so it's an okay thing. So let's now take a look at what we have here. So the process is almost complete, and as soon as it's done, we're going to go back to our D drive, and we have that Lightroom New folder, and we've got 2012 folder in here. And if I double click in there, we've got two things, 2012 and previews. Now remember, it was not able to copy the previews from all the images because I never built them, but if it did, then it would contain all of them. So in this case, 2012 is the catalog we created. If I go to Lightroom now and go File, Open Catalog, and we navigate to that same folder where 2012 is, click Open and relaunch it. And as soon as that happens, you will see that within our folder structure, look at that, we've got Photos, 2012 is the only folder in there. We don't have any other years. So just like that, you can actually take your folders within Lightroom and reorganize them into a number of different catalogs. So if you have one massive catalog, which is taking a lot of time, maybe you create subfolders, reorganize your images by year, and then separate these things out. Now, the nice thing about this process is that you don't have to be scared that you will lose anything, because when you export those images as a catalog, it will actually preserve everything that has to do with the images that you selected, which means that anything like all of the changes that you made to the images, your collections, and even things like keywords will be copied over. And as you will see here, all of those keywords got copied over, but the other keywords that had nothing to do with these images didn't migrate over, which is really nice because I don't need all that junk in here. I'm only exporting 2012, and my preference is to actually end up having the keywords that are relevant to the image that I'm using. So this is really nice. Now let's jump back to our previous catalog and just do one more real quick. And when this comes up, you will see that although I did export 2012, it is still in this master catalog, and that's fine because this will allow you to separate things out but still keep that original catalog in case you made a mistake or you want to go back and do some things to it. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do one more. So select 2014 and just do the same process, export as catalog. And in here, in that same folder, notice that I didn't have to create a folder. And this is something important. So once you create that main Lightroom new folder or any other parent folder, all I have to do is type in 2014 here, and I've got those already selected, click save. And if I go back here, now I have two separate folders. So this is something important to keep in mind. Now, as soon as that's done, and now it's probably copying the previews from the 2014 images. If I go ahead and minimize it, you can see that the export is complete and I have the same issue as before, which is that it couldn't find some of the previews, which is perfectly fine. I'm just gonna go ahead and click OK. Now we have two separate catalogs. We've got 2014 and we've got 2012. And these catalogs, one more time, I'm in my master catalog. If I were to navigate into the 2014 brand new catalog, I will see that only the images or the links to the images before, as I said, it's very important to clarify that I'm not actually copying images. I'm simply creating a new database that refers to the images that are already existing on my E Drive Photos folder, that I will see that these 139 images are going to be part of that new 2014 catalog. Now, let's do something different. What if you had a bunch of catalogs that you created and it was just creating too much of a headache to try to navigate between these different catalogs? Another thing you can do, and that's another very powerful feature in Lightroom, is that you can actually combine multiple catalogs into a single catalog. So let me demonstrate that. So in this case, I'm not gonna mess with this one because I already have all the images that I need. I'm going to go ahead and navigate myself to that 2012 catalog that we had before. So I'm gonna relaunch Lightroom and open 2012. And remember, this is the one that we just created earlier, so I have those 124 images. And I want to consolidate 2014 into here. How do we do that? By going into File, you have, just like the export to catalog, you also have the ability to import from another catalog. And this is the feature that we're going to use. So right now, 2012 is open. I need to navigate my way into the 2014 folder. And if I click that 2014 catalog and click choose, what that will do is it will say you want to import the catalog 2014, and then I've got a couple of options here. So I've got all folders, which in this case I do have the photos 2014 London trip, but if say you only want to import the catalog partially, if I go back to my original catalog, it will actually allow me to go through a number of different folders and check and uncheck the images that I want. So in this case, I want everything, but if you only wanted a select number of folders, you have the ability to choose from here. So this is really nice. Another thing you can do from here is it says for new photos, what type of file handling? Do you want to add new photos to catalog without moving? Or do you want to copy new photos to a new location and import? And again, in this particular case, adding new photos to catalog without moving simply means I'm going to create these links to the images, but I'm not physically going to touch the files. And then the second option is what allows you to actually physically copy images from the original location into the new location. This is something that I do not want. And the last option is don't import new photos at all, which in this case, if I click that, then nothing gets imported. So I don't need that. I'm gonna go back to add new photos to catalog without moving. So another thing you have is changed existing photos. Now this is something important because if you're trying to merge multiple catalogs and you have a clash of folder names, you might have something like this come up where it will say, well, what will I do if the folder that or the catalog that you're trying to merge the images from into this one is going to have conflicting image names? What do you want me to do? And in this case, right now it's grayed out because it's not detecting anything like that. But in this case, if it did, I could have the option to replace images or maybe skip and not replace those images in the catalog. So what I'm going to do is, in this case, ignore this part, and then I could even show the preview, and that allows you to see what you're about to import into this catalog. So I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that, and let's go ahead and click import. And as you can see right now, it's importing all the images, and boom, as soon as that import is done, we now have 2012 and 2014. What did we just do? We just consolidated two completely different catalogs into a single catalog. Now that I have the two catalogs consolidated, it probably doesn't make any sense to keep the catalog that I imported, 2014, and maybe even rename the 2012 because now it contains 2012 and 2014. So if you run into a situation like this, let's see how you can work with Lightroom in order to take care of that. So first of all, I want to leave out of Lightroom. And the reason why is because I do not want anything locked in my file system. I'm gonna go into that Lightroom new folder, and as you can see, I've got 2014 and 2012. Now 2014 is something I no longer need because I actually imported all of its contents in the database into my 2012 folder. So if I wanted to, I could maybe keep the contents of this in my backup somewhere, but I'm gonna go ahead and delete it because I no longer need it. And in this case, I am only dealing with this 2012 folder because that's my master catalog now, which now contains all of 2012 and 2014. So if I wanted to rename the catalog, unfortunately, Lightroom does not give you the capability to be able to do that directly from Lightroom. Because once the catalog is open, it gets locked and there's no way for you to be able to change the name of the catalog. But you can do that through the file system. And one more time, you need to make sure that you are out of Lightroom. You cannot do this while you're in Lightroom. So close out of it and then go to that main folder where you have the Lightroom catalog. And in this case, if I wanted to say, okay, this is no longer 2012 and I'm just going to change it to merged, I simply can use the file rename tools of my operating system, and once I make that change, that catalog has just changed. So now that it's changed, if I open up Lightroom again, what is going to happen is it says, well, Lightroom catalog wasn't found because the last one that I opened was 2012, and obviously it's no longer there. So we need to make sure that we point it to the new Lightroom catalog. But watch what happens when I do that. If I say choose a different catalog, and I'm going to say choose a different catalog, now I'm going to navigate my way into that 2012 merged. If I click open on that, what you will see is that everything is opening properly, so everything is back to normal. But if I minimize Lightroom, now I have another previews folder. So this can be a little bit of painful to deal with because if you spent a lot of time in your Lightroom building previews and you had all those thumbnails, if you just rename the folder itself without renaming the previews folder, you will end up with another brand new folder, and now this one is a complete waste. It's just a space taker. So what you want to do, the proper procedure is, let's go ahead and close out of Lightroom. Every time when you rename a catalog, which in this case I did rename to merged, I'm gonna go ahead and delete this new previews folder. Also make sure to rename the previous folder. So all I have to do is right click here and click rename, and now in the beginning of the folder is the first part of the folder is the name of the catalog. So all I have to do is just call it merged previews.lr data is the folder name. So watch what happens now that I just renamed both of them. If I open up Lightroom, it's going to fire it up, and all the previews and the thumbnails that I built before are now being actively used. In fact, if I switch back, I can see that it did not indeed create another folder. So that pretty much covers the catalog basics. Now, just like I said before, try to keep your catalogs organized in your file system so that you don't end up with too many things in too many places. If you learn how to do this properly, then you will know how to take care of the backups with much more ease than before.